All right, so look, y'all boys. Today we got How EA Ruined UFC Games Forever by my boy JMMA. Make sure y'all boys go subscribe to him, man. I was at work. I got the notification. I dropped a comment in the video. I said, yo, look, man. I gotta show y'all what. I was like, hey, man, look. As soon, I already dropped the like on it and everything. I didn't even watch the video yet. I said, bruh, I'm reacting to this as soon as I get home from work. Keep grinding. Listen, man. This is important, man. We're gonna get right into this because this video is it's almost like 20 minutes.
In the world of video games, the marriage between sports and gaming has always been a precarious one. When Electronic Arts entered the octagon with the UFC, fans of the sport were eager for a realistic and exciting experience. However, as time went on, it became evident that EA's handling of the UFC franchise would be a source of frustration for many. Hi, I'm JMMA, and this is how EA ruined UFC games. Chapter 1, The Beginning. This all started with the ultimate fall of the THQ franchise. After they tried to release multiple products and video games to try to rejuvenate the company from bankruptcy, it ultimately fell. That meant the beloved UFC Undisputed franchise.
The best games. How did they come? They came from a whole different company. UFC Undisputed 3, UFC Undisputed, UFC Undisputed 2010. These are games that we used to play on the PS3. We used to play this on the PS3. I had an Xbox 360, but we used to play these games on the PS3 until we could spin the controllers off. These were the last good UFC games, man.
So it's no longer going to be made. Now, Dana White has said many times under the brass of THQ after he made the deal that he actually first went to EA, but they laughed in his face.
EA Sports is a joke. Told me when I talked to them that MMA is not a real sport and they would never make an MMA video game. Guys, this tweet is very important because as you guys can see, they don't care about UFC. They don't care. Look right here. These type of feelings don't just go away. They only went into business with the UFC because it became one of the most popular sports in the world. So, of course, EA being EA, they're just thinking about money. So, the proof's in the pudding, man.
Any games, and he constantly berated them time and time again.
We talked to EA Sports, and you know what EA Sports said? It's not a real sport. Those aren't real athletes, and we'd never make a video game out of that.
Then, all of that changed. In 2012, at the Electronic Entertainment Expo, EA came out and announced that they would have a brand new multi-product, multi-year partnership with the UFC. Now, it was said that EA purchased the rights from THQ for an undisclosed cash payment. Don't know how much it was, but I would assume it's a lot. And then, at the Xbox One reveal event, EA came out and revealed the very first gameplay for the first EA UFC game. This game was going to be the first game that Electronic Arts had ever run on the Ignite engine. As a result of this new project, EA put its Fight Night boxing franchise on hold. The company said the decision was based primarily on its perception that the UFC had a greater international prominence to make money. Basically, they didn't think the Fight Night boxing franchise, which was well beloved by many, they didn't think it would make enough money as the new kid on the block. Although while saying this, EA did say that the boxing series could potentially return. The Fight Night team, now known as EA Canada, became the UFC team. After gameplay was revealed at the Xbox One event, the roster was gradually revealed by EA in batches. The final roster for EA UFC 1 consisted of 97 fighters, not including DLC. These fighters included TJ Dillashaw, Tyron Woodley, Tim Kennedy, Gunnar Nelson, Nick Diaz, Hector Lombard, and many more popular UFC fighters at the time. Also, it added the addition of a Legends pack, which included Mark Coleman, Matt Hughes, Quentin Rampage Jackson, and Brock Lesnar. And on June 17, 2014, after many betas, reveal trailers, gameplay deep dives, and everything else, the game was finally released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it was actually well received. The Metacritic gave the game a 7 out of 10, GameSpot gave it a 5 out of 10, IGN gave it a 6.8 out of 10, and VideoGamer.com gave it a 6 out of 10 as well. Being removed from the UFC Undisputed franchise, this was seen as a win from Dana White and EA Sports themselves. EA UFC 1 brought a level of realism never seen before in any MMA game ever.
I gotta say, my guy Jay, I'm only 3 minutes in. I feel like I'm watching a movie right now, man. This is well put together, bro. Make sure make sure y'all boys go subscribe to JMMA, man. Hey, this is well put together, and we only on chapter 1, so let's see how much better it's gonna get.
Intensity had fans craving for more. However, this excitement did not last long before issues began to emerge. Those problems included many microtransaction bugs, gameplay bugs, and even bugs for character models. So fans were definitely mad and heated, which then came the release of UFC 2. Till this day, UFC 2 is highly regarded as the best game in the EA UFC franchise. While I don't agree with that, it is beloved by many fans. When EA first made this game, they tried to strive to be as realistic as possible. They tried to mimic the MMA aspect, you know, as real as it gets, like what they did with UFC 5. We're going to get into that later, but that's what they tried to do with this game. EA announced that one of the cover fighters would be Ronda Rousey. After a while, they then announced that the notorious Conor McGregor will be the second cover athlete after his defeat and ultimate win of the featherweight championship over Jose Aldo. Players who pre-ordered the game had the ability of 4 additional fighters, Baj Rutten, Kazushi Sakuraba, and 2 different versions of Iron Mike Tyson. And obviously, Bruce Lee, who returned from the previous installment, was in this game in multiple weight classes. Just like the first installment of this franchise, UFC 2 was met with a lot of criticism. EA Canada received feedback and complaints from multiple players who said the ground controls and the controls in general were too challenging and that the game lacked modes to keep the players interested. As a result,
and it still does,
to improve the grappling mechanic in order to deliver an onboard and
still does lack game modes.
5 new game modes. According to EA UFC's creative director Brian Hayes, he says that having impressive graphics was important to me. We hope to achieve this by updating and improving the game's lighting, animation, and rendering system. The KO mode was designed for players who only intend to play the game casually. And after this, EA UFC 2 became a massive hit because of the wild ragdoll KOs, the exciting commentary, and even exciting fights that you have. This game also got an improvement in scoring from multiple gaming outlets. Game Informer gave it an 8.5 out of 10, and Polygon gave it an 8 out of 10, while IGN doubled down, while GameSpot respectfully gave it a 7 out of 10. While I just read out those ratings, that really didn't matter. UFC 2 was beloved by fans, and obviously that meant EA made more money. But this is where the problems began. Chapter 2.
Here we go.
Downfall.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We're going to chug on through this ad right here.
November 1st, 2017, EA announced that the next installment, UFC 3, was now in development. The game completely took a turn. They had brand new controls, brand new modes, even brand new graphics. The graphics changed, the character models, everything looked completely different. This was kind of groundbreaking at the time because going from UFC 2 to UFC 3 was a huge surprise and huge shock for a lot of fans. It was like a completely different game. Shortly after EA announced that the game was in development, 2 days later to be exact, the official reveal trailer was released worldwide and it went absolutely crazy. But like other EA games, UFC 3 was heavily criticized for implementing pay-to-win mechanics. Although the use of microtransactions is expected in any and every game mode, consumers were enraged by this. Like I said before, UFC 3 and UFC 2 are 2 completely different games. But here's why. UFC 3 implemented RPM tech. It was the first title to ever do something like this. RPM tech was an engine developed by EA Sports, which more accurately represents character movements. If you don't know what that means, it basically means they were able to mocap people. Now, if you don't know, fighters like Sugar Sean O'Malley and Angela Hill actually went up to Vancouver to do mocap.
Why don't they just have the damn fighters, the majority of them do mocap? Maybe they can't do everybody, but just like in 2K, you know, you have different players' jump shots that were mocap. Is it that hard, EA, to have the fighters come in, hey, record a jab, record your jab, record your hook, record your leg kicks, your spinning kicks, whatever unique kicks you might have, and then just add it to the game? Is it really that hard? Is it that hard to add player uniqueness to the game? Once again, rewind back to this video right here. Chapter 1. What did they tell Dana White in 2010? We would never make a video game on UFC, and it's not a real sport, and they're not real fighters, whatever. You think those feelings go away, guys? No, they don't.
Pay attention, if you go back and play UFC 3, you can see that Sean O'Malley actually mocapped his own, style and moves. But here comes the problem with that. If you pay attention, it looks like as he's shadow boxing, like he's throwing like a lazy jab, like he's really not throwing it. It does not look like a real life fight, jab. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of the animations and movement in EA UFC 3. Now, while I say that, it kind of represented that Beck's quote-unquote simulation feel of an EA UFC game, how it was supposed to feel. Going from UFC 2 to 3, it was a big change because UFC 2 was so arcadey-like, and then you get this game, it was much more simulation-like. The block was kind of strong. There was a lot of problems with this game, don't get me wrong. It was just a bunch of things going on. You had players going in professional tournaments for money using these things. If you don't know, haptic feedback was something used for visually impaired players. It will let them know certain things that the opponent was about to do.
Here's the thing, right, about the block from UFC 3. I had to talk about that. It's like once the one thing I noticed about these sports games is they don't know how to balance anything out. So if it was really bad in UFC 3, all of a sudden you get to UFC 5 and it's just terrible. So
mistake of adding this in online play, which then competitive players took advantage of to win, to cheat, to get money, things like that. EA UFC 3 had a lot of problems, but generally, I think a lot of hardcore fans actually think this is the best game. I keep saying this during this video, this is where it begins, but I feel like UFC 4 truly started the downfall of this game. August 14, 2020, UFC 4 was publicly released and widely anticipated by many fans of combat sports. Like I mentioned before, UFC 3 was favored by so many, so most were excited for an even more polished game. During the first week, many positive reviews were given, which is shocking. GamerRank even called it the best version of combat sports, with EA Sports going in the direction to cater to more of the casual audience, like they did with UFC 2. They decided to add more cosmetic features such as the deep calf customization and pre-fight emotes. At the time, it seemed fun and cool, but as time went on, the game had more problems that became apparent. During the first month or so of the release of UFC 4, Online Ring Championships, a more competitive online mode, built to challenge players by matching them up with other online players on their skill level. You would kind of think this mode would be fun and interesting, but during that first month, it was quite the opposite. Unlike UFC 3, players were forced to play 2 certain weight classes per hour instead of choosing them freely. Also, the matchmaking in itself was very inconsistent. Now, you can look at these problems as nitpicks from me or whatever, I don't care, but the gameplay issues were the icing on the cake. Online ranked was where the most traffic of players went, but sadly, this is where the problems of that game specifically stem from.
Here's where we get into the meat and potatoes of this, man. This is important right here, man.
A mode meant for competitive play swiftly changed into an online pool of players exploiting inconsistencies
pure exploits.
With the gameplay. Developers felt like the clinch in the previous game wasn't fluid enough, so they simplified it down and got rid of the clinch input to create a smooth transition from striking to clinch scenarios. But here's the problem. As one content creator explained it, the problem is the lack of transitioning within the clinch and the fact that the fighter being clinched can only punch and do one transition. Nothing really else that we can do. The small exploit there created a whole entire meta playstyle around clinch spamming and really broke down online ranked itself. And this is where the problems of EA just incompetence really shine. Because 6 to 7 months into UFC 4, we stopped getting actual gameplay updates. Now, we got a few updates here and there of them adding fighters, a few tuner updates, but that slowly trickled down as time went by. Even when the UFC switched from Rebound to Venom for their fighter kits, we still wasn't getting, an extreme amount of actual gameplay changes. It was more so cosmetic changes. They even went as far as 3 years into the game. 3 years, they added Hasbulla cosmetic items that you can purchase at, I believe, $6.99 USD. Absolutely crazy. This game is widely regarded as the absolute worst.
But you see though, right? They're worried about the wrong things. I told you guys this repeatedly. That's why the fools that support this product blindlessly, mindlessly, without having any common sense that God gave them, EA's in this for money. Did y'all not see the tweet where they literally told they would never make a UFC game and it's not a real sport? But because the UFC was on a high trajectory, they just figured, hey, let's just capitalize and just make as much money as we can, which they are doing. They're going to get their sales, and then eventually it's going to fall out. But they've already made millions just off the UFC franchise. So, I mean, it's crazy to me.
There was a lot of problems going on between the EA devs themselves and the community. A content creator by the name of Pryoxis uploaded a video of an EA developer telling people, if you do not like UFC 4, then go play his previous installment, which is UFC 3, because people were comparing it to...
Alright, so let's read this. I struggle to find what's improved. Then he says, I mean, from 3 to 4, bit of shocking lack of development. Not shocking for an EA Sports game, but you know, so what can be had? Why was this subsystem even swapped from the one in UFC 3? Here's the rub, mate. Seems like everything that's been added or tweaked from UFC 3 is worse. Tell us what your capabilities are instead of giving us your bear masks. So just
to UFC 3 to UFC 4,
just little
like,
mindless.
hey, this game was so good. Why do we get here and this game is so bad? Do you guys not care about your product?
Right? Seems like everything that's been added or tweaked from UFC 3 is worse. The developer says, then play UFC 3.
These are the type of people right here. I call them evil rats. Let's call them evil rats. People like this guy right here, Skynet UFC. I call people like that evil rats because, I mean, it's so simple, right? Even for example, a community like 2K, right? There's devs over there. Some of them are delusional, right? But you never see something this crazy. You know what I mean? The most I could think, we're not going to dive too much into that, but you never see something this ridiculous where it's like, people are trying to tell you that there's, you know, certain aspects in the game that's not well put together, and you say play the older game. It's just like, people like that deserve to be slapped in the face, man. Seriously, like, we got to go back to like really telling people to shut up, and people need to get harmed for like treating others so poorly. That's what I genuinely believe, you know what I mean? Like, if people are gonna sit there and spend their hard-earned money just to get robbed for a game that's just like poorly put together, I mean, and then you have guys like this that are in some position of control to run around and say, play the older version of the game. What a fool, man. Chokes have been probably the biggest problem for months, I would say at least. The thing is, the direction this game went into, completely neglecting the online play mode / balance. The people who are passionate the most about this game keep getting let down. You know?
If this is your message, you say, then play UFC 3. How about don't make UFC 4 and just continue to update UFC 3?
This is just what started a rift in between the community and the developers, because after Pryoxis made that video, people from that video were hounding the developers. And I'm not gonna say that was right. That was absolutely wrong for them. I almost said it was rightfully so. I didn't mean to say that. Was the video that Pride made bad? In my opinion, no. It was not that bad. But what was bad was the outlash that the fans did after watching that video.
I'm like, what the hell is going on?
What's bad is the fact that EA, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this right here. What's bad, right? This is a cause and effect. It starts at the very top. First, it starts with the scumbag owners, right? If they're pushing out this bad idea to just, oh, let's just get money out of this game we never said we would never make. Let's just get money out of this, and then that's it. Then it starts to trickle down. If they're releasing a terrible product, right? And they're telling somebody to go play an old game, it's free game. People have the right to voice their opinions. If these idiotic developers are gonna sit and say, well, play the older game, then a consumer that spent their hard-earned money has the right to say whatever the hell they want to say. As long as they're not saying, obviously, some type of crazy thing, you know, that cannot be helped. I do YouTube and somebody say, hey, I'm gonna do this and that to you. This is the freaking internet. Especially when you're being such a terrible person. Oh, go play the older game. No, what the hell? Okay, now you get the backlash from the fans. That's how this works, man.
That developer had to be held accountable. He had to.
Yeah.
You can't say that stuff as a developer. You know what I mean? And this
Facts.
is just what started a snowball effect.
There it is right there,
Now,
as I just said.
Chapter 3, which is how to fix these games. Now you may be wondering, and you may already know, why I didn't go over UFC 5, and that's simply because the game already came out. So it's a smooth little transition into what I'm going to talk about now. Now this game is on a brand new Frostbite engine. Now me personally, I'm not familiar with the Frostbite engine, but I know a lot of players in this community are because they play various games that have this new Frostbite engine that EA was advertising it as a brand new experience. And it was a brand new experience, alright? A brand new experience of motherfucking rage, because that's what a lot of players have been doing.
1.4. I tell you guys, you see, this is UFC 5 has the worst rating we've seen. Bro, look at that, bro. See you on that.
A brand new experience of motherfucking rage, because that's what a lot of
3 years to make a new game, and they literally made everything worse. Literally, look at how many 1-star reviews there are. It speaks for itself. Here's a list of problems from UFC 4 that EA could have solved in 5, but simply chose not to. And the guy goes on and lists all the ones. I mean, guys, you see the overwhelming number of 1-star ratings. I mean, this game deserves 0 stars. I don't even know how it got a star to begin with. It doesn't even deserve to get a star rating at all. But no, it's not my time to rage. I ain't gonna rage. I ain't gonna rage. Yeah, we needed to jump into that ad, man. Yo, I had a rage moment like that.
You see things like glitches, players are doing a T-pose and the clinch and just straight stupid stuff, you know what I mean? And it's just absolutely crazy how we're on a brand new engine and, you know, things are not different. So,
same game.
This is how UFC games can become better. First off, I feel like what made the UFC Undisputed games so fun and so great, and why they're wildly liked and successful, was because those developers loved MMA.
Exactly.
They did MMA. They just loved the sport itself. Now, this is not me coming at the developers themselves. I'm not saying
no, I am.
Love this franchise as equally or whatever. I'm just saying from the outside looking in, it does not look like that. I very well could, you know, possibly say that they're probably being held back by EA as a corporation themselves, given that UFC 4 did so wildly successful. EA is probably like, all right, we're just gonna have this bottom line. You guys stick to it. You can't make this game. You have to make the game that we want it to be, and not what you want it to be. It can very well be that. But at the same time, this is how we can make sure shit like this doesn't happen again. We gotta talk about the tracking. We gotta talk about the block breaking and the stem. These have all been problems that have riddled this EA UFC.
Tracking, block breaking, stamina.
I don't know why it's so hard to have fighter uniqueness. In UFC 3, like I mentioned before, Sean O'Malley, Angela Hill, and a couple of other fighters actually did their very own mocap. I don't know why it's so hard to do that for UFC 5. Now, people can say it's limited resources and budget. I've seen companies with less do more, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I really don't find it as an excuse for EA. They have to fix the tracking. They have to do that. If I evade a punch, if I pull back a hook, if I duck a head kick, the head kick should not still hit me on the side of the head. That is one of the main problems with UFC 5, and it was a problem with UFC 4. Now, I will say this. I think the block breaking is attributed to the stam. The stam is just, I don't know why. They've never nailed the stam. In UFC 3 was too much. UFC 4, they kind of toned it down, and in this game, it's too much again. So I don't know. I just don't know why it's just such a problem.
So they just don't care.
You have to fix that. If I hit you in the body, for example, if I'm hitting you with endless body shots, you should lose long-term stam. If you're throwing a shot and you whiff on a shot, I make you miss because I'm going down to your body, you should lose a significant amount of stam. It shouldn't be you're able to walk forward, throw 218 strikes in a round as I'm continuously hitting your body, and you still have about 80% of your stam, while I have about 40% because you knocked me down twice. You know what I mean? So stam is busted. It's just a lot of things with this game that need to be fixed. Now, I will say the transition-based submission system is fire. It is fire. But like I mentioned before, the first thing they have to fix is the actual passion for these games. But again, we don't know exactly what EA is making these developers make. But I feel like outside looking in, they just don't care. We don't even have a brand new roster outside of these new quote-unquote alter egos. And it took for Dana White himself to come out and say, all right, y'all, like, come on, we got to add this in. And then EA came out and said, okay, we're going to add this fighter, this fighter, this fighter.
And then finally for me, UFC 5 is coming out. One of the biggest critiques and negatives about it is the roster of the game is missing tons of ranked fighters. I know you really don't have any say in that, but like, could you push to get more fighters in the game?
Done. I'll make it happen.
Bottom line, we all want the games to be great. As much as we criticize the game and go at EA, it's because we want the game to be great. If we didn't, we would just stop buying the games and not give a fuck about it. Point blank, period. But since we care so much, we have a passion. We want to continuously voice our opinion. And with that being said, that is going to be the end of this video. But I want this video to be a discussion piece down below in the comments. So down below, give your honest opinion about UFC 5 and what needs to be fixed about the game, and also just the franchise in general. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'll catch you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, be sure to like, comment, and
Y'all know what to do, man. Drop a like, comment, subscribe on JMMA's channel, guys. Go subscribe over there. Y'all know what to do, man. Go drop your comments down below on this video, and drop your comments down below about this, video in general, my reaction to the video. What do you guys think about UFC 5 and the franchise overall? I think it's a huge major L. UFC 5 is the worst sports game I've ever played in my life. And I'll catch y'all in the next video, man. Peace.
Gang, they cannot do it like him. Nobody shooting like him. Gang, nobody doing like him. That nigga hate everyone cause he broke, and that's why nobody like him. Gang, SD Gun, now he talking this shit.